Did you know Lil Durk recently did an interview with Kanye West from jail? During that conversation, his friends announced the date of his release, and it became a big topic of discussion. Durk shared, "I'm feeling good, just taking it one day at a time, you know? Just chilling and staying focused." He also reflected on his time in prison, saying, "I love the time I spent in Saudi. That was great." He went on to explain how people in prison often don't get to experience the world outside, and when he shares stories with them, they are often shocked, responding with, "Wow." Durk also mentioned he had just gotten off the phone with Puff Diddy, talking to him for the first time in 5 minutes. This stirred even more buzz on social media, with many fans and academics tweeting about it. The buzz continued when it was revealed that Durk's upcoming album was going to be one of the best of the year, according to some sources. But beyond the music, bigger things seemed to be happening behind the scenes, and people kept saying, "Free Durk, his album is coming." A significant update came when Lil Durk's producer testified in court. The producer revealed that the song, Wonderful Wayne, featuring Jackie Boy and Babyface Ray, which prosecutors suggested referred to a passing, was actually recorded 7 months before the incident. This was crucial, as the court documents confirmed that the song was made long before the tragic event. The lyrics in question had been scrutinized, especially a part where Durk raps, "Look on the news and see your son, you scream and know," which mirrored how Quando Rondo reacted at the scene. Another part of the song raised alarms with its mention of an address, linking to the idea that Durk might have been involved in sharing locations. However, a key figure, Brick Baby, stated that if Durk had asked for a location, he would have shared it without hesitation, but he denied any involvement in the crime. The situation became even more complicated when prosecutors revealed they had over 230 gigabytes of digital evidence, including audio recordings, video footage, and thousands of pages of reports. This meant they had a vast amount of information to prove Durk's involvement in various incidents. On top of this, it was reported that Durk had ties to 2 other passings. One was Stefan Mack, who was allegedly involved in taking Durk's brother's life, and the other was Jam's baby mother, who passed away after Durk learned that Jam had been wearing a wire against him. The feds believed Jam could be the key to linking Durk to these crimes, adding even more pressure on Durk's case. Fans quickly dug into past interactions between Durk and Jam and found an Instagram live video where Jam appeared to be wearing a wire, possibly confirming the suspicions. Durk had trusted Jam a great deal, even giving him $50,000 after he was released from jail, thinking Jam was loyal to him. Durk seemed to have overlooked some of the warning signs, but it became clear that Jam was not to be trusted. Months before his arrest, Durk began to notice strange behavior from Jam. In an interview, Durk shared how he had been playing 3D chess all along, knowing Jam was likely to cooperate with the authorities. Durk said, "I can talk to someone for just 5 seconds and know if they're trustworthy or not." He also mentioned that he never allowed his best friends into his house, saying, "It's just a different type of situation. Not everyone gets access to my house." Unfortunately, Durk's ability to trust people was deeply betrayed when Jam decided to cooperate with the authorities. Jam's actions were seen as a violation of the loyalty Durk had placed in him. It became even more complicated because Durk was locked up and unable to take action himself. With his hands tied, it is reported that Durk sent his associates, often referred to as his goons, to handle the situation. According to sources, Jam was found hiding in a house just outside Atlanta, where he was confronted by Durk's people for his decision to cooperate with the authorities. This confrontation was a direct consequence of Jam's betrayal, and reports suggest that Durk's associates punished him severely for his actions. The entire situation grew even darker when prosecutors revealed new details implicating Durk in a separate case, which only added fuel to the fire. This new revelation involved the passing of Stefan Mack, a man who was allegedly targeted as part of Durk's revenge for the tragic loss of his own brother, Thing. Mack's death, according to these court documents, was not just a random incident, but rather a calculated act of retaliation orchestrated by Durk and his crew. The court documents that were recently unsealed revealed shocking evidence, including an Instagram post made by Durk just moments after Mack's passing. In this post, Durk seemed to make light of the situation, further linking him to the incident. This social media activity raised suspicions and painted a grim picture of Durk's role in the crime. His fans, many of whom had followed his career and personal life closely, were left shocked and disturbed by the post. It was hard for them to reconcile the image of the rapper they admired with the person who appeared to be celebrating or mocking a tragic event. What followed the Instagram post only added to the unsettling nature of the situation. The day after Mac's passing, Durk went live on Instagram. In this live video, Durk was seen laughing and joking around, something that many viewers found disturbing in light of the circumstances surrounding the passing. Fans and observers were taken aback by Durk's seemingly carefree attitude in the face of such serious allegations. To some, it seemed like Durk was indifferent to the loss of life and the repercussions of his actions. To others, it felt like he was taunting the situation, almost as if he was trying to prove a point or assert dominance over those who had wronged him. The combination of Jam's betrayal, the allegations surrounding Stefan Mac's passing, and Durk's actions on social media painted a deeply troubling picture of a man who was clearly entangled in a violent and dangerous world. Durk, who had built his career and reputation on his music and the loyalty of his supporters, now found himself under intense scrutiny. It was evident that Durk's personal losses, especially the devastating death of his brother, had taken a significant toll on him. The grief and the pain from losing a loved one were raw and real, but they also seemed to ignite something darker within him, an overwhelming desire for revenge. The quest for vengeance seemed to consume him, leading to decisions and actions that many of his fans and supporters found difficult, if not impossible, to justify. Durk's involvement in these violent events only further complicated his already complicated life. His loyalty to those closest to him, such as Jam, had been shattered by betrayal, which left him feeling vulnerable and exposed. In a world where trust is rare and hard to come by, Durk's reaction to Jam's decision to cooperate with authorities seemed almost inevitable. Feeling that Jam had crossed a line, Durk resorted to a dangerous, aggressive response. But it wasn't just Jam's betrayal that clouded Durk's judgment. His grief over the death of his brother seemed to influence everything he did. Losing a loved one to violence can distort the way a person sees the world, making them more inclined to seek revenge rather than healing. For Durk, it appeared that the line between justice and vengeance had become dangerously blurred. The public's perception of Durk started to shift as more details about his actions and involvement in these violent events emerged. Fans who had once seen him as a victim of his environment, someone who had fought his way up from the streets, began to question whether the rapper had truly become a product of the violence he had experienced. For many, Durk had once been the voice of the struggle, the one who had made it out of the tough streets and into the spotlight. But now, with his actions growing more erratic and destructive, some fans found it hard to continue supporting him. The main question people started to ask was whether Durk had become so blinded by his desire for revenge and the need to protect his loved ones that he had lost sight of the bigger picture. Was he still the same person who used his music to speak out against the harsh realities of life, or had he become a part of the very cycle of violence he had once spoken against? Fans who had followed his journey, from his rise to fame to his struggles with loss, found themselves grappling with this dilemma. It was one thing to be a product of one's environment, but it was another thing entirely to perpetuate the same violence that had caused so much pain in the first place. Some supporters continued to stand by Durk, believing that his actions were a direct result of the environment he had been raised in, a world where loyalty, respect, and revenge often outweigh common sense. They viewed him as someone who was simply trying to protect his family and avenge the losses he had suffered, even if it meant resorting to violence. For these fans, Durk's behavior was seen as a reflection of the difficult and dangerous world he came from, a world where survival sometimes meant making choices that others might find hard to understand. But there were others who began to question whether Durk had allowed himself to become trapped in that world, unable to break free from the cycle of violence. These critics wondered if Durk's need for revenge had overshadowed his sense of responsibility, not just to his family, but to his fans and the community that had supported him throughout his career. His actions, both on social media and in real life, seemed to paint a picture of a man who was losing touch with the reality around him. His behavior, including the controversial Instagram posts and live videos, seemed to suggest that he was more interested in asserting his dominance and sending a message to his enemies than in finding a way out of the darkness that had consumed his life. This internal conflict between revenge and responsibility created a sense of uncertainty about Durk's future. His fans, many of whom had connected with his music on a deeply personal level, began to wonder if the man they had supported for so long was still the same. Had he become a symbol of something much darker, someone whose obsession with revenge had clouded his better judgment? Or was he still the same artist, struggling to make sense of a world that had taken so much from him? The question loomed large, and as more information about his actions surfaced, it became increasingly difficult to ignore. The situation highlighted the complicated nature of loyalty and betrayal. Durk's loyalty to his friends and loved ones had been tested in ways that many people could not imagine. But the price of that loyalty seemed to be his own peace of mind, as well as his ability to see things clearly. He had been dragged into a world where violence and revenge ruled the day, and it seemed like he was losing himself in the process. The fans who had once admired him for his resilience and strength now found themselves torn. They wanted to stand by him, but at what cost? Would supporting Durk mean condoning the same cycle of violence that had already claimed so many lives, including his own brothers? As the narrative around Durk's life continued to unfold, it became clear that the choices he made in the heat of the moment were beginning to define his legacy, both as an artist and as a person. The question of whether Durk could find a way to rise above the violence and revenge that had consumed him was more pressing than ever, and whether he could still be the person his fans had once believed in remained uncertain. What was once a tale of struggle and triumph was now turning into one of tragedy and lost potential. The situation was made even more complicated by the legal battles Durk was facing. As prosecutors continued to build their case against him, the pressure on Durk only grew. Every new revelation seemed to add more weight to the charges against him, making it harder for him to defend himself. His legal team, though hardworking and dedicated, faced an uphill battle as they tried to secure his release and clear his name. Durk's bond request was denied, and the conditions in which he was held in jail were reportedly becoming worse. His transfer to a different cell block was seen as a direct result of the escalating tensions surrounding his case. As a high-profile rapper, Durk was now a target for others within the prison system, and his status only made things more difficult for him. On the outside, fans were left wondering what would happen next. Durk had always been seen as a symbol of resilience, someone who had overcome adversity to rise to the top of the rap game. However, the events surrounding his arrest and the charges against him were casting a shadow over his legacy. His ability to navigate the dangerous world of street beefs, legal troubles, and betrayal was being tested like never before. Fans who had once looked up to him for his music and his journey were now forced to grapple with the reality of his situation. In the midst of all this, Durk's album, titled Almost Healed, was set to be released. The title alone seemed to capture the emotional weight of his journey. Fans and critics alike wondered if the album would offer any insight into his current state of mind or provide a glimpse into the struggles he was facing. Was he truly healing, as the title suggested, or was he still trapped in a cycle of violence, revenge, and regret? The album's release was likely to spark further discussion about Durk's future, both as an artist and as a person. Durk's story was one of redemption, revenge, and the constant battle between loyalty and betrayal, a story that would continue to captivate and shock those who followed it. As the evidence continued to pile up, many fans turned against Jam, blaming him for being responsible for Durk's current situation. Durk's legal team, however, has been working hard to get him a bond. They filed a request for Durk's release, proposing a release plan in the hopes of securing his freedom. With all of the legal drama surrounding Durk, his supporters continue to hold out hope for his release and the completion of his album. Fans are eagerly awaiting what will happen next, especially with all the complicated and dramatic events unfolding around him. Lil Durk's team tried to secure a $3 million bond backed by his homes and cash from Sony Music, but unfortunately, the request was denied. Despite this setback, it shows that his lawyers are not giving up on fighting for his freedom. They've also raised concerns about how he is being treated in jail. According to reports, Durk was transferred to a different prison after facing issues in his cell block. As a high-profile rapper, he became a target for people looking for money and commissary. His lawyer believes that Quando Rondo might be sending threats toward Durk in retaliation, especially after both Quando and Lil Tim gave interviews after Durk's arrest. They released their statements on the same day, which some people believe was not just a coincidence, but a calculated move by Quando and his crew to get back at Durk. Quando Rondo spoke about how he felt when he found out that King Von was the one who caused the conflict, saying, "I was like, damn, if Brian had not done that stupid thing last night, he would still be alive." He expressed how he tried to stay humble and avoid disrespecting anyone, especially Von's family. Similarly, Quando Rondo pointed out that Durk, despite having a family, got caught up in street beefs, which he believes could have been handled differently. He suggested that the situation could have been resolved peacefully, even with music involved, instead of escalating into violence. Durk's prison transfer made his life behind bars even harder. His new living conditions are reportedly worse than before, which is similar to how YNW Melly has been treated in prison. Some people, like Charleston White, have even said they are glad to see Durk in jail, arguing that he deserves to be mistreated because of his past actions. Things took a turn when Brick Baby, in an interview, made statements that could have led the authorities to investigate Durk further. He mentioned that Durk could no longer deny his involvement in certain events, like the incident with King Von, because of the connection to Lil Baby and an attempted hit. This raised concerns as it suggested Durk's possible role in criminal activities. Furthermore, prosecutors looked into the link between Durk's crew and another crime, where suspects were tied to King Von and OTF, only the family. It became clear that the authorities were building a case against Durk. Amid all of this, DJ Academic spoke about the title of Durk's upcoming album, Almost Healed, which seemed to reflect the struggles Durk has faced over the years. Academics explained that the title aligns with the timeline of events, like the death of Durk's brother in 2021 and the loss of others close to him. Durk's album release in 2023, titled Almost Healed, seemed to be a way for him to express that he's still recovering from the pain of these losses. As rumors about snitching within Durk's circle spread, Bezo, a close associate, spoke out to calm people down. He said that accusations of people snitching were false and that people on the outside were making things worse by spreading misinformation. Bezo emphasized that they had no involvement in any illegal activities and that outsiders should not try to make assumptions based on rumors. Regarding Durk's legal situation, a professional lawyer commented that Durk might be able to get out of jail soon, but there is still a lot of work to be done. The lawyer pointed out that while there's some evidence, such as texts suggesting Durk was cautious about his name being associated with certain people, it's still not enough to make a clear case against him. They will need more concrete evidence, like videos or audio recordings, to really make a strong case. Until then, the situation remains uncertain, and it's too early to say whether the prosecutors have enough to prove Durk's involvement in any criminal activities.